Africa. We should have done it earlier in the week, but we're catching up, fortunately, with our regular geopolitical analyst Aaron Ngambi, and tensions are rising in major political and security flashpoints intensify. Cameroon is heading into presidential elections surrounded by controversy, and the DRC, the government, is at odds with opposition parties, rebel groups, and civil society about peace talks and the role of former President Joseph Kabila. Let's chat now to Aaron Ngambi and try and figure out some of these issues. Aaron, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Peter, and thank you for having me.
So, Cameroon's presidential election is set for October the 12th, but the opposition is deeply divided, including over who will lead any unified challenge. What impact might this disunity have on the prospects for a free and fair contest, or it doesn't really matter, I guess?
Well, this disunity, unfortunately, only speaks to nothing but no change at all, in the sense that this favors the ruling party and the incumbent, who is, of course, senile, and he basically cannot rule this country. He's beyond 90 years old, and it seems like he's not even there. It seems like his campaign has been run by people who want him to continue, people that have been close to him, and people that are basically managing the campaign. And so this disunity among the opposition is really a sad tale, because it favors the incumbent, but at the same time, it also speaks to the usual African politics of selfishness and people struggling to come together on principle, putting their personal ambitions before the country. Because, to be honest, it seems like the situation is desperate. And so everyone in the opposition thinks that they have a chance, but they forget that going it alone without coming together actually divides them rather than bringing them together against the incumbent.
All right, so let's chat a little bit about Angola signing a deal to combat illicit drugs with Nigeria. What do you make of this?
What Angola and Nigeria should be doing is signing a trade deal that connects the two oil rich countries in Africa to better trade relations, to have a free trade agreement, and like these kind of deals or arrangements that they are signing, because they really are of no consequence. I don't think that the issue of narcotics is a big issue between Angola and Nigeria. I think that what needs to be consolidated is the trade issues between the two countries, and that will have an overspill effect to other countries as well. Africa needs more trade among its countries, among ourselves, more than these other sideshow agreements and diplomatic engagements that we usually see.
What about, I guess, what's happening in the Central African Republic? We're seeing 5 UN police officers killed in the country. What's happening there, Aaron?
Yeah, unfortunately, these five that were killed seem to have come from uh, uh, the Republic of Congo, Congo Brazzaville, but these are UN peacekeepers, and there was a clash that happened, and unfortunately, 5 UN peacekeepers were killed. The Central African Republic is definitely a hostile environment for any kind of security issues. I mean, you will recall that even its own president is heavily guarded by Russian mercenaries. I mean, the presidential guards to uh, the president of the Central African Republic are not from that country. So it speaks to the instability, the insecurity that surrounds this country. And for some years now, it seems like there has been relative peace. There hasn't been a lot of issues in terms of civil war, because the government has opened up to these foreign countries, contracted these foreign countries at a huge cost to try to maintain some sort of peace. But it seems like these clashes that we're seeing are the signs of some sort of instability. And remember, this could also be because of the elections. This is an election year in the Central African Republic. And so we might be able to see a lot of either violence or insurgencies going on.
Okay, huge trenches are swallowing up homes in the DRC amongst all the other drama it's going through. What are these trenches about?
The DRC seems to be a God-forsaken country. It seems to have issues going on. It's one thing after another. This is an issue of climate change. We are told that these uh, gullies, as they call them, as a result of um, the difficult issues, environmental issues surrounding the Congo, Congo Kinshasa, and we have heard that over 120,000 people have been displaced because of these. Homes have been destroyed and swollen up. And we saw that President Tshisekedi made an effort to visit some of these areas, the sites, and be able to address the people. Unfortunately, he was booed. Unfortunately, he did not receive the kind of reception that he expected, but he did the right thing. He provided leadership, he went to these areas and attempted to talk to the people. But by and large, it seems like this is an environmental issue, and this is an issue of climate change. And we hope that the Congo can take this issue seriously.
Then, Equatorial Guinea authorities have reportedly enforced a year long internet outage in Annobon Island following protests against construction activity. What are the broader consequences of this? I mean, this is sadly something that we see some governments, especially around protests or elections, choosing to silence citizens by shutting down the internet.
I think that the government of Equatorial Guinea is using this saga of, the dispute between this island and a Moroccan construction company as a pretext to silence these people. The truth is that uh, the people of this island for a very long time have attempted to secede from Equatorial Guinea. There have been protests, they've been trying to agitate for some sort of autonomy and to basically break away from the country. And this has, in some instances, there's been clashes with the government in the past. This has been a major issue. And I think that because of this now protest, the people of the island were fed up about this construction company that was involved in all sorts of illicit activities and taking advantage of the people. And when they protested that, the government reaction was not to come to the aid of the people, but rather to punish them by completely cutting off this internet services for a year now. And this is upset. This is completely nothing but censorship. It is one way that the government is trying to take away the people's freedom and rights of free expression and to basically just cut them out from the rest of the world. Because once you do that, once you shut down the internet, like you've said, we saw that in 2021 in Uganda during the elections when President Museveni uh, cut off the internet for a few hours during the elections and or actually a little bit after the elections as well. But the people always find a way. The people started using VPN in Uganda. The people always find a way to be able to have access to these basic necessities now. So we hope that the government of Equatorial Guinea can rethink this position.
They voted in Parliament, moving to allow its president to run for unlimited terms. And I guess another familiar story. When you set up a constitution with good intentions, you say, I'm only going to do 2 terms. And when it starts to run out, you say, hang on, I actually would rather stay. Is this yet another ploy to keep the family business going, running the country?
Yeah, and and the problem is that this is a pattern that we've seen over the years in many different countries in Africa. And the argument that these good for nothing politicians make is that no, but this person, and they make it so exclusive to the incumbent as if this is a person that just dropped from heaven and is unique and have these gifted talents that we can't do without, and they need to stay and we need to remove term limits for their sake and not for the sake of the country or another person that might take over, but they want to change the constitution completely because it does not favor this specific incumbent. I find that to be almost appalling, and it's very disturbing because the signs that we send out, or the signal, the message out to the people is that, well, we have found one perfect person in the country that we can allow to rule us forever, and maybe after this regime, then we can go back to two terms. We can go back to the sense of why we made that constitution in the first place. This is absurd. This is just another way of perpetuating someone's stay in power without legitimacy.
I think that Chad might be, I mean, this Muhammad Idris Deby might be misreading the room a little bit, because we saw what happened in Gabon, where a son takes over from the father. Eventually, the people just say no. Could it be that maybe in Chad we might start to see some resistance because the country is being treated like a family dynasty?
Absolutely. I think that is exactly what might happen. The people eventually get fed up. These removal of term limits and these machinations when it comes to constitution are all done by the people in power. This has nothing to do with consultations from the people or what the people want. And so at some point, the people get fed up and the people rise up. And the other thing to remember about Chad is that Chad has a promising opposition leader, Sukse Masra, who I think that if this incumbent and this president today miscalculates, he might just find that the likes of Sukse Masra and others might rise up and be able to agitate and be able to rally the masses to overthrow them. And he might even end up like other dictators do, run away from the country in exile, in self-imposed exile, and fail to even rule the country indefinitely.
Are there any consequences for this in the region? Is this I mean, I suppose I can't say it's precedent setting because we've seen it before, but what are the issues for the region if people like Idris Muhammad Itno is allowed to do what he's doing?
The problem with the region itself, if you look at ECOWAS and you look at other Western countries, is that even historically speaking, it's a very troubled history in terms of politics. You talked about family dynasties. We've talked about things like, Cameroon in itself. You have an incumbent that's with the country over 40 years, is 92 years old and trying to come back again for the eighth term. So there's no really saving when it comes to sort of like a mirror of what people should be looking for. I mean, there are very few countries in the region that people can both in the central region as well as in West Africa, that people can look up to as a model for democracy, as a model for really the rule of law and things like that. So I think that in this context, it is just a matter of internal dynamics within Chad that will bring about a change. I am not overly optimistic. I know that some of these things may take years and years before you see what happened in Gabon, before you see what happened in other parts of the country, I mean, other parts of the continent. We'll talk about Cameroon, we talk about Uganda, for example. These regimes that have gone on for over 40 years now, which is very unfortunate, and we don't even know where it ends. So Chad could be one of those things, and it will be of no consequence in the region. Or Chad may actually take a different turn. It could be the next Gabon. It could be a country that people eventually rise up. But I think that the voices such as Sukse Masra and other opposition voices in civil society might actually bring about a different Chad sooner rather than later.
Right, and that's where we're going to have to leave it. Always good talking to you, Aaron, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Thank you, Peter. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much. That's our regular commentator, Aaron Ngambi, giving us a look at the Central Africa region there. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Jolani Tulongwepe.
Get the news